Standard 1 revolves around content knowledge. In this short video, I will introduce 3 artifacts that I've created and explain how they fit into this standard. But first, let's look a little bit more closely at what this standard means. For AECT Standard 1, candidates demonstrate the knowledge necessary to create, use, assess, and manage theoretical and practical applications of educational technologies and processes. In EdTech 502, I created an online scavenger hunt with a focus on copyright rules for ESL educators. Armed with new skills such as HTML and CSS, I designed and produced this artifact to help fellow English language teachers make sure that they are using content in an ethical manner. The scavenger hunt approach allows the student to discover relevant information through the scaffolding provided in the activity design. This artifact demonstrates my ability to create instructional materials to promote ethical practice by professionals. In EdTech 505, I planned and conducted an evaluation on the use of MathShelf, a tablet application that my company was pilot testing prior to expansion. Using the CIPP model of evaluation, I was able to evaluate the pilot program and make recommendations that are currently being implemented during the expansion. This artifact demonstrates my ability to assess and evaluate the integration of technology. Finally, I created a unit of instruction in EdTech 511 that is actually part of a larger course I was developing in my job. Based on the knowledge and skills I've learned during the MET program, I've been developing an online language learning business for my company called On the Job. I use LearnDash as the LMS, and I created triggering event videos for each lesson using Vyond, iMovie, GarageBand, and Audacity. And finally, I designed interactive activities using H5P and, for EdTech 511, Muzzy Lane. These tools and approaches provide students with a rich online learning environment. These 3 artifacts clearly demonstrate how, in my professional life, I am directly applying my new skills and knowledge to create, use, assess, and manage applications of educational technologies and processes. Standard 2 is related to content pedagogy. In this short video, I will introduce 3 artifacts I created and explain how they are tied to this standard. But first, let's look more closely at what this standard means. For AECT Standard 2, candidates develop as reflective practitioners able to demonstrate effective implementation of educational technologies and processes based on contemporary content and pedagogy. As I began EdTech 512, I was requested by a client to create an online course for Japanese factory workers. The result is Business Conversation Basics, which I designed using the community of inquiry, backward design, and chunking. These 3 approaches to online learning have continued to play a strong role in both my MET courses and my professional work. It was through this design process that I learned the importance of authentic learning, especially in language learning. In EdTech 522, I struggled to relate completely to any of the rubrics we were provided, so I designed my own. This forced me to really examine and understand how to measure quality in an online course, and I'm still quite pleased with my rubric. The act of evaluating these 2 courses for the assignment helped me identify that both social presence and teaching presence were sorely lacking. This led me to the discovery of the community of inquiry, perhaps my biggest takeaway from the entire MET program. The jigsaw activity I designed in EdTech 502 focused on multiculturalism in the workplace, as at the time I was teaching diversity as a corporate trainer. The content leads a group of students through a seminar to help them better understand different ways of doing business around the world. I designed the web page using HTML and CSS and used web tools to check the page's accessibility. Multiple resources are provided to allow for different points of view in alignment with Elliot Aronson's Jigsaw Classroom model. These 3 artifacts clearly demonstrate how, in my professional life, I'm using my knowledge of modern pedagogy to develop interactive learning spaces utilizing educational technology and processes. Standard 3 is related to learning environments. In this short video, I will introduce 3 artifacts that I have created and explain how they're tied to this standard. But first, let's look more closely at what the standard means. For AECT Standard 3, candidates facilitate learning by creating, using, evaluating, and managing effective learning environments. For my digital story assignment in EdTech 513, I created a short video on the personalization and embodiment principles using these 2 principles to demonstrate proper practice. I used a simple conversational tone throughout in alignment with the personalization principle, and I demonstrated proper use of the embodiment principle with an animated avatar of myself. For my instructional design project in EdTech 503, I collected data using multiple approaches both to design the lesson and to improve upon it. First, I conducted a needs assessment of the targeted students. This helped me identify the goals and objectives of the lesson. I also used Kirkpatrick's 4-level evaluation model to design an evaluation plan that included formative and summative assessments, stakeholder feedback, and a subject matter expert review. All of these helped me make informed decisions to improve learner outcomes and the learning environment. Finally, in EdTech 502, I created a virtual field trip about LGBT history in the United States. This was planned as part of a larger diversity program at a corporate client's office. The purpose of the artifact was to help employees better understand their fellow colleagues. Additionally, I used a variety of web tools to check the accessibility of the site to make sure that students with various backgrounds and abilities could access the content and participate in the field trip. These 3 artifacts clearly demonstrate how I'm using my skills and knowledge to create, assess, and improve rich learning environments. Standard 4 is related to professional knowledge and skills. In this short video, I will introduce 3 artifacts that I have created and explain how they're tied to this standard. But first, let's look more closely at what the standard means. For AECT Standard 4, candidates design, develop, implement, and evaluate technology-rich learning environments within a supportive community of practice. In EdTech 503, I worked with a subject matter expert, or SME, to evaluate my instructional design project. In fact, prior to this course, I was not familiar with the term SME. However, I identified a colleague who reviewed and evaluated my project. Using her feedback, I was able to tweak the lesson before implementing it in a real classroom setting. Through this, I was able to learn the importance of working with peers to improve learning materials and environments. Also in EdTech 503, I wrote a reflective synthesis paper on the process of creating the final artifact. Through reflection, I was able to identify where my knowledge and skills had been lacking prior to completing the ID project. I recognized that I had been neglecting to conduct needs assessment, write clear objectives, and develop an evaluation plan with both formative and summative assessments. This only further emphasizes the importance of iterative design in educational technology settings. Finally, in EdTech 501, I was my group's leader for the project on bridging the digital divide. Working with a group of peers on different continents and in different time zones was a challenge, but thanks to the collaborative nature of Prezi and Google Docs, I was able to learn key skills for leading a global team. I'm currently using these leadership skills at work as I lead a team in different locations using collaborative tools such as G Suite, Slack, and Zoom. These 3 artifacts clearly demonstrate how I'm using my professional knowledge and skills in accordance with Standard 4. Standard 5 is related to research. In this short video, I will introduce 3 artifacts that I've created and explain how they're tied to this standard. But first, let's look more closely at what this standard means. For AECT Standard 5, candidates explore, evaluate, synthesize, and apply methods of inquiry to enhance learning and improve performance. In EdTech 501, I was tasked with identifying a local problem related to the AECT Code of Professional Ethics. This was a challenge as I live in Japan and my Japanese language skills are limited. However, through conducting proper research through Boise State's Albertsons Library, I was able to research and compose an academic research paper that addressed cyberbullying in Japan and its historical context and included ongoing actions and recommendations to address the problem. For my EdTech 504 synthesis paper, I focused on the role of the Community of Inquiry framework in online adult language learning settings. I initially prepared an annotated bibliography following proper research procedures, and then wrote the paper ensuring that APA style was used in both in-text citations and the reference list. Ultimately, the knowledge I gained through this research has affected my instructional design skills as I incorporate the COI model in all of my work projects. Finally, in EdTech 505, I learned and followed proper strategies in planning, developing, and conducting an evaluation of MathShelf, a tablet-based math application. Based on initial interviews with key stakeholders, I developed an evaluator's project description and a logic model. I then selected the Context, Input, Process, and Product, or CIPP evaluation model as the framework for my evaluation. My recommendations from this evaluation are currently being used at work to improve the targeted project. These three artifacts clearly demonstrate how I'm using accepted professional methods of inquiry to design, develop, and improve learning materials, environments, and performance.